إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا من سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. We start by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We praise Him, we thank Him for His never-ending blessings. We seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the evil within ourselves and the consequences of our evil actions. He whom Allah guides can never be misguided, but he whom Allah leads astray can never find anyone to guide him. We openly bear witness that there is no deity that is worthy of worship except for Allah, and that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is His slave and His messenger. Allah says in the Quran, O ye who believe, fear your Lord as ye should be feared, and do not die except in the state of Islam. O people, be in awe of your Lord, who created you from one soul, and from it created its mate, and from them created many men and women. O you believe, fear your Lord, and always speak the truth. Allah will amend for you your deeds, forgive your sins. Whoever obeys Allah and His Rasul has indeed achieved a great achievement. Dear believers, there was this professor who stood in front of his class, and he had a jar. And next to the jar, he had a stack of rocks. So he took a bunch of rocks in his hand, and he put them inside the jar. Then he asked his class, he asked them, is the jar full? After he filled it with these big rocks, and they say yes. So then he took a bunch of little pebbles, and he commenced to pour them into the jar. The pebbles went in between each one of the crevices of the big rocks. Then he asked his class, now, is the jar full? They say yes. And so he grabbed some sand, and he commenced to pour the sand inside the glass, and it went all in between the crevices where the big rocks and the pebbles did not take up, and it filled the glass all the way to the top. The class was astounded, and the teacher says, now the glass is full. So dear believers, this analogy is meant to represent our lives. That glass is our life. And the big rocks take up the big things that are supposed to take up the majority of our time. Our ibadah, our salah, our reading of the Quran, the big things. So if these things aren't big, they leave room for the less insignificant things. The pebbles, our work, our school, things of this nature. And if those things don't take up our time, guess what? Our time will be filled with sand. Insignificant time that will be wasted on Yom Qiyamah, that will not count for or against us, just wasted time. So dear believers, I stand before you today and urge you, we need to use our time effectively. Allah says in the Quran, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تلهكم أموالكم ولا أولادكم عن ذكر الله ومن يفعل ذلك فأولئك هم الخاسرون. Allah says in this beautiful ayah, Allah says, O you who believed, let not your wealth or your children divert you from the remembrance of Allah. SubhanAllah. And whoever does that, indeed, they will be amongst the losers. So let's look at this ayah and we say, wow, this is a powerful ayah. Because our children, these are the creatures who, if we don't spend time with, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will punish us. We need the wealth in order to go about with our lives. So how is this true? How can these two things take away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? One of the ways is if we have an abundance of children, which also can be equated or translated to followers. And we have an abundance of wealth. And we're just using our time facilitating all of this. But the second way that a lot of people don't think about is if our children and our wealth are the bane of our existence. They're the thorn in our side. We look at our children and you see some people that, mashallah, they have so many children. But what do? They spend all of their time complaining about their children. They say, oh, my kids are so lazy. My kids are not good as those people's kids. My kids do not work as hard as they should be. My kids are so disrespectful. And they spend all of their time complaining about their children. We need to take the example of Yaqub alayhi salam, who had a bunch of children. We know this. Yaqub alayhi salam had a bunch of children. And they were involved in fitna. And we know what that fitna was. But what was the result of that fitna? As a result, in the life of Yaqub, he used this fitna to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, I am not going to complain in this dunya about my children. I only complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what did that do? The fitna got him closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. Not to mention the money. We all complain about money, right? No matter how much Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us, we always want more. We always want that new phone or that new house. We complain that our car is not good enough, right? We need better clothes. I need better clothes to go to the masjid, right? The women always need more jilbabs and things of that nature. We don't take the time and realize that you may be wealthy beyond your furthest imagination. There was this woman who came to the sheikh and she said, yes, sheikh. She says, my husband he's depressing me. He is confining me. He's oppressive to me. Why? Because he makes all of this money and he only gives me $1,000 a month. And I can barely afford to pay all of my bills and do the things I need to do. So yes, sheikh, you must go to him. You must ask him, please give me more money every single month. And he says, okay, sounds like you have a good argument, mashallah. But I'm going to ask you one question. Do you pray all 5 salats on time? And she says, no. And he says, this is what I'm going to tell you to do. I want you to go home and I want you to pray all your prayers on time for 3 months. And if after that time, you still have a problem, come to me and khalas. I'll go to your husband and I'll get you more money. No problem. So after 3 months, she came back to the sheikh. And she said, yeah, sheikh, something has happened to me. He said, are you still having this problem? She says, I have a different problem. She says, I started praying all 5 of my prayers on time. And sheikh, would you imagine what happened to me? I started looking around my closet and I started to see how many clothes I have, how many shoes I have, how much money I waste on frivolous things. And now, sheikh, now I realize that my husband gives me too much money a month. Now I have $400 to $500 each month in order to give to charity. MashaAllah. You see, with the prayer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed this woman with contentment. Because if you don't have contentment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you $1 million, and guess what? You'll just want $1 million more. Because you're not content. Or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you $10. And that could be the beautiful blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you will be content with this. So we need to look at our world in a way where we are blessed and not complain and not use this to get in the way of us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you know why? In the last little bit of this ayat, where the person says, وَأَنْفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ يَأْتِيَ أَحَدَكُمُ الْمَوْتُ فيقول رب لولا أخرتني إلى أجل قريب فأصدق وأكن من الصالحين. Allah says in this beautiful ayah, He said, and spend from what we have provided for you until death approaches one of you. And He says, my Lord, if only you would delay me for a brief second, I will be amongst the ones who give charity, and I will be amongst the righteous. So you see this scene that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is painting for us, that we get a front row seat to. And this is a scene that I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not test anyone with. How when death approaches you, not when you get your life taken, when you are on the brink of death and you started to realize things about your life that you could have changed. But guess what? It's too late. Now you can't change those things. And now you have to sit there and think about your life in its totality. And he's thinking to himself, I wish Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could just give me more time so I can give from what he has provided for me. And a lot of times we say, I don't have much. I only have a little bit. I can barely pay my rent. I can barely pay these things. I don't have a lot of money. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, give from what he has provided for you. You could be able to do math more than the next person. You may be able to recite better than the next person. You may be able to play basketball better than the next person. And what should you do with these things? You should use it to uplift your community. Use it to teach the children. Use it to embetter your mosque. Things of this nature. We need to be thinking about this at all times. How can I use my time in order to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And not to mention, he says, if you would delay me for a brief time, I will give charity and be amongst the salihin, amongst the righteous. And he could have used any word right here. He could have said, send me back so I could be among the mu'mineen. So I could be amongst the muttaqeen. So I could be amongst the sabirin. So I could be amongst the believers. I could be amongst the ones who have taqwa. I could be amongst the ones who have sabr. And all of these things are beautiful, and all of these things are things that we should strive for. But he says, send me back so I could be amongst the salihin. MashaAllah, who are the salihin? The salihin are the reformers, the believers. The salihins are the person who are always pushing to be better in their deen, in their life. If the salihin was praying right now, fast forward a year, his prayer will be better. If he was fasting right now, fast forward a couple months, his fast will be better. The salihin is always pushing himself to be better in this deen, to be a better father, to be a better brother. The salihin is the one who uses his time effectively. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses all to be amongst the salihin. Because one of the things we say is, we don't look at time with the value that it needs to be looked at with. But you know one thing about time. If someone came up right now and said, brother, I don't know what happened. I misplaced $5. Can you help me? And if I had $5 and I gave it to the brother, his problem would be solved. And in that little microcosm, we see a valuable lesson. You know what about time? A value thing about time? It can be replaced. But the thing about money is it can be replaced, sorry. But the thing about time is it cannot be replaced. Just imagine if someone gave you $86,400 every single day. Every single day, $86,400 was deposited into your bank account. But the only caveat, the only rule about this money being deposited into your bank account is that you would have to spend every single dollar or take it all out the bank. Or it'll be deleted from your account. What would you do every single day? What would you do? What would I do? Every single day, I would take all of the money out of my account. I would not leave a dime any day because I wouldn't want to waste. But guess what, the believers? We are all blessed with 86,400 seconds every single day. So how are we using this? Are we getting the most of our time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with? Because he blessed everybody with different amounts of money, but time is all the same. But not to mention, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, the son of Adam will not be dismissed from his Lord on the day of resurrection until he is questioned about 5 things. His life and how he lived it, his youth and how he used it, his wealth and how he earned it and spent it, and how he acted on the knowledge that he was given. In other words, how did you use your time? These will be things that we will be questioned, dear believers, on Yom Qiyamah. How did you use your time, your life, and how did you spend your life? Did you spend your life causing corruption in the streets? Did you spend your life trying to do things other than what I have provided to you? I blessed you to be this strong, strapping man. How dare you live your life as a woman? Not to mention, he's going to ask the youth, how did you spend your youth? And dear believers, this is a problem that is facing everybody now. How did you spend your youth? Because a lot of our youth are using their time and they're wasting their time. Some people will say, I spent my whole youth in front of a screen playing video games. I spent my whole youth wasting, listening to music. And we go and we criticize the youth, right? We have programs and we shame them, but guess what? Who's buying the internet for the youth? Who's buying the cell phones for the youth? Who's providing them with food and drink while they sit around all day playing video games? That will be us. We are the culprits behind this. So the caveat in changing the youth comes from within us. We must change ourselves first. Not to mention your wealth and how you earned it. How did you earn your wealth? Did you spend the majority of your life trying to earn wealth, chasing wealth, when you could have been chasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You see, the basketball players, they spend more than half of their lives playing basketball. Kobe Bryant spent over 20 years in the NBA playing basketball, not to mention high school and everything. And after he was done, he said, you know what? This is the time that I will spend with my family. 2 or 3 years later, we know what happened. He died in a helicopter accident. So we know if we had an opportunity to ask someone, if you knew that you were going to go out like this, would you spend that much time chasing wealth in that way? And not to mention, how did you use the knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you? So one of the things the scholar says is, killing time is like killing yourself. We as Muslims, we don't believe in killing time. That's a very, very detrimental statement to make. They say time is like a sword. If you don't get control of it, it will sever you. If you don't get in control of yourself, every single second that ticks away actually hurts you. It doesn't help you. So we must come to grips with this, because we know that we have to work and we have to make a living for ourselves. We know this. However, we must not use this as a detriment to ourselves and our families. There was this young boy who inquisitively asked his father, how much money do you make an hour? And his father, he answered them. He said, you know what? I make $20 an hour. And so his son had this big smile on his face. And he says, yeah, Dad, can I borrow $10? And his father got angry with him. And he says, how dare you ask me how much money I made an hour just to hit me up for cash? Go to your room. And so his son ran to his room in tears. And the dad sat and thought about that for a second. He said, you know what? My son may have needed the money. He may have owed it to someone else. I don't know what the situation is. So he went up to his room and he said, you know what, son? I'm sorry. I overreacted. Here's the $10 that you asked for. And his son had that big smile on his face again. So he took the $10 that his father gave him, and then he grabbed $10 from under his pillow, and he says, Dad, now I have $20. Here you go. Can I please have an hour of your time? Can I please just have an hour of your time, Dad? So you can spend with me, so you can pay attention to me. So dear believers, we know that there are people in all of our lives who would literally spend money to spend time with us. We cannot make them have to do that. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. إن الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أما بعد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Allah says in this beautiful ayah, by time, surely man is in loss except for the ones who believe and do good deeds and enjoy each other in truth and enjoy each other in patience. So dear believers, one caveat about this talk today. The good news about this is we all have more time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us to wake up this morning. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with good health. We can use this. Even our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he came amongst his sahabas and he asked them, he says, is any one of you able to earn 1,000 good deeds a day? He asked the sahabas this. And they said, yes, Rasulullah. We will be interested in earning 1,000 hasanats a day. And he replied, by glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 100 times, you earn 1,000 good deeds will be added to your record, and 1,000 sins will be removed from his record. MashaAllah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it so easy for us. We just read it in the surah. That all time is wasted except the times that we spend trying to chase good deeds. So we should use this at the bare minimum, dear believers. And praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at least 100 times a day so we can get 1,000 good deeds or 1,000 sins will be removed from our record. So dear believers, I'm going to close on this. There was this young man who played on a basketball team. And he was very, very talented, mashallah. But his coach said, you know what? If we can just hone in on this young man, if he can just be focused, I believe that he can be one of the greatest basketball players. And so the coach researched this. How do I inspire this young African-American young man? And so what he did, he found this book. And he gave him this book. And the coach didn't read the book himself. He just knew that it would be inspirational. And this book was the autobiography of Malcolm X. And this book hit this young man like a ton of bricks. His name was Chris Jackson. He immediately changed his name to Mahmoud Abdul Rauf. But not to mention, he made such a splash in the National Basketball Association that they made documentaries about him, and he is touring the country right now giving da'wah to all kind of people. People are accepting Islam because of this young man. But the caveat to this story is his coach was not a Muslim. His coach was not a Muslim. So you see, dear believers, in this beautiful story, it's a great lesson that if we as believers are not doing this work of da'wah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will get the non-believers in order to do it. And it's no problem for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we need to take this time. And if we're not giving da'wah ourselves, and we're not on the streets ourselves, and we're not talking to people ourselves and to support people who are doing this work. So I have a group, it's called Embrace. In this group, all we do is we welcome our revert brothers and sisters who come into this deen and who take the shahada. And sometimes the communities, what they do, they turn their backs on them, unfortunately. To the point where the statistic is 7 out of the 10 believers who accept Islam reject Islam, subhanAllah. So we want to work on this. And we want to build up these groups and have more Embrace groups operating out of every masajid. You may have seen me before. We have meetings every Thursday upstairs. So dear believers, there will be a table outside. Make sure you donate to that table. Make sure you use your time effectively and you plot and scheme and strategize on how you can give da'wah to the non-believers. Because this is the most effective way for us to use our time. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses us to be good shepherds of our time. I pray that Allah extends our time on this earth to do good deeds. I pray that Allah blesses us to make positive impacts in our communities. I pray that we stand on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah honored by our efforts. I pray that Allah blesses us to be amongst the few that are grateful to Him. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses us with Jannah Firdaus al-A'la. I pray that Allah helps the oppressed people all around the world. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون أقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
حق لا إله إلا الله يا الله. استوى. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أرأيت الذي يكذب بالدين فذلك الذي يدعو اليتيم ولا يحض على طعام المسكين فويل للمصلين الذين هم عن صلاتهم ساهون الذين هم يراءون ويمنعون الماعون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. Allahu Akbar. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Thank you Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the khutbah. May Allah accept from Ustad Noha Seifullah. Please remove the double park car from the IIT main parking lot. IIT weekly program, Sheikh Ahmed Umarji has a Quran tafsir, which is every Tuesday after Maghrib. Tafsir every Tuesday after Maghrib, and Sira class also every Thursday after Maghrib. IIT, ICH and ICSB are having a joint Eid picnic at the Nature Center San Pedro on Sunday, July 16 from 10:30 to 4:30 p.m. Address is 1805 West 9th Street, San Pedro, California 90275. Please purchase your lunch at the website. There is a QR code outside on the flyer. Please take the image and order your lunch. Brother Wolfram passed away in Indiana. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rest his departed soul in eternal peace in Jannatul Firdaus and grant patience to his all family members and relatives. Ameen. The recording of the khutbahs are available at IIT Facebook group, IIT Torrents, and YouTube channel, IIT Torrents. Please subscribe it. And one more thing, the Empress, the khutbah was sponsored by Empress. There is a table outside. If you want to be a part of the Empress or want to help the new Muslim to teach them how to pray, how to do, we contact them, and we need a volunteer for that. Please also contact them for the on the table and also donate them.